Ladies and gentlemen, it's easy to lose sight of who you are when others around you try to define your worth. The world is full of people who will seek to use you for their own benefit, to manipulate your time, your energy, your skills, and your resources. They'll make you feel needed, important, maybe even loved, but they'll never show you the respect you deserve. That's the danger of allowing others to define your worth. You become a reflection of their needs, not your own. You begin to doubt your value, to question your abilities, to wonder if you are truly deserving of the things you desire in life. But let me tell you this, you are more than what others see in you. Your worth is not determined by how much you can give to someone else or how much someone else can use you to advance their own interests. Your worth comes from within, and it's time you recognize that. Recognizing your worth starts with understanding that you are not just an object to be used. You are a person with your own dreams, ambitions, fears, and desires. And those things deserve to be respected and protected. Too many people go through life undervaluing themselves, accepting poor treatment from others, because they've been conditioned to believe that this is what they deserve. Society, relationships, and even your own inner voice may try to convince you that you're not enough or that you should settle for less. But that couldn't be further from the truth. You are enough. You've always been enough. And the moment you realize that is the moment you reclaim your power. When you understand your worth, you stop looking for validation outside of yourself. You stop seeking approval from people who will never see your value no matter how much you give them. You stop pouring into empty cups that never replenish. You stop giving away pieces of yourself to those who never truly appreciate it. You realize that you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Your worth is innate. It doesn't fluctuate based on someone's opinion of you or the amount of time you spend catering to their needs. You are valuable because of who you are, not what you can provide for others. But recognizing your worth doesn't just stop at acknowledging your value. It requires action. It requires you to set standards for how others treat you. Once you understand your worth, you have to make sure that the people around you understand it as well. It's about drawing a line and saying, this is who I am, and I will not tolerate being used or disrespected. You have to be firm in your convictions and not allow anyone to undermine your value. This can be hard, especially when you care deeply for someone or when you feel guilty for standing up for yourself. But let me tell you this, if you don't stand up for yourself, who will? It's not about being arrogant or entitled. It's about having self-respect. It's about knowing that you are not here to be someone else's stepping stone, someone else's tool, or someone else's emotional crutch. You are here to live your life, to chase your dreams, to achieve your goals, and to build the future that you deserve. You are not a project to be fixed or a person to be used. You are a force in your own right, and no one should take that away from you. It takes courage to recognize your worth, especially when the world around you tells you otherwise. It takes strength to stand up for yourself when people try to use you for their benefit. But let me remind you, you were not put on this earth to be anyone's second choice or their convenience. You were put here to make an impact, to build a legacy, and to live a life full of purpose. Your worth is something that no one can take away from you unless you let them. So don't let them. It's time to stop doubting yourself, to stop questioning your worth, and to start living with the conviction that you are enough. You are not here to be anyone's pawn or their source of validation. You are here to make your own mark on the world. Recognize your worth, own it, and never let anyone make you feel small for doing so. There's an undeniable power in the ability to walk away. It's easy to stay in situations where you're being used, especially when you've invested so much of yourself, your time, and your emotions. You may feel like you owe it to the other person, that leaving would be abandoning them or somehow failing them. But let me tell you something, walking away is not a failure, it's a victory. It takes an immense amount of strength to recognize when a relationship, whether personal or professional, is no longer serving you, and even more strength to actually step away from it. It's not easy, but it's necessary for your well-being. Too often we find ourselves stuck in relationships where we're being taken advantage of. It could be a friend, a partner, or even a boss who constantly uses you for their own benefit without ever considering your needs or valuing your time. The people who take advantage of you may not even realize they're doing it, or they may be completely aware and continue to exploit you because they know you'll keep giving. And why wouldn't you? You want to help, you want to be there, you want to feel needed. But there comes a point when you have to ask yourself, what about me? What about your needs, your peace, your happiness? Leading is not about cutting ties or being selfish. It's about taking back control of your life. It's about setting a boundary and saying, I will not allow myself to be used any longer. It's about recognizing that you deserve to be treated with respect, to have your needs acknowledged, and to be in relationships that are mutually supportive. Sometimes we stay because we're afraid of the consequences. We fear the discomfort of the change, the awkwardness of leaving, or the uncertainty of what will come next. But staying in a relationship that drains you, that diminishes you, is far more damaging than any temporary discomfort you might feel from walking away. Walking away doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you're abandoning someone who may need you. It simply means that you recognize that, at this point in time, the relationship is no longer healthy for either of you. By staying, you only perpetuate the imbalance, and that benefits no one in the long run. The hardest part is often understanding that you cannot fix every situation or save every person. Some battles are not yours to fight, and some people are not meant to be in your life forever. The longer you hold on to a relationship where you're being used, the more you lose yourself in the process. It's easy to start losing your sense of identity, your confidence, and your sense of self-worth when you're constantly giving and never receiving in return. It's also important to remember that walking away is not about rejection, it's about self-preservation. We often stay because we want to be liked, we want to be needed, and we want to be seen as reliable and caring. But sometimes the most loving thing you can do both for yourself and for the other person is to leave. It gives both parties the space they need to grow, heal, and, perhaps, learn to respect one another in a new way. Walking away doesn't mean you are abandoning someone in need. It simply means you're choosing to take care of yourself first, to honor your needs, and to protect your peace. In relationships, whether they are friendships, romantic relationships, or even family connections, there must be mutual respect. You cannot be expected to give everything without receiving anything in return, and it's not healthy for anyone involved. If you're constantly being used, you'll eventually start to resent the relationship and the person you're trying to help. That resentment can build up over time, and it will create toxicity in the relationship. It's far healthier to recognize when it's time to step away, take a breath, and reevaluate your life. When you make the decision to walk away, you are making a statement. You are saying, I deserve better. I deserve to be valued, and I deserve to be loved. It's not about closing doors or burning bridges. It's about prioritizing your happiness and your mental well-being. It's about saying, I love myself enough to let go of what no longer serves me. And as difficult as it may be, the truth is that once you walk away, you'll begin to feel the weight lifting off your shoulders. You'll reclaim your time, your energy, and your peace. You'll start to realize that the world is full of opportunities for growth, and being in a toxic relationship holds you back from all the possibilities waiting for you. Walking away opens up space in your life for better things to come, for people who will appreciate you and give back what you give. You may not see it right away, but walking away is often the first step toward a better, more fulfilling life. It's a hard decision, but it's one of the most powerful choices you can make for yourself. Understanding manipulation is one of the most crucial things you can do in your life, especially when it comes to relationships. Manipulation is a subtle, insidious force that can easily go unnoticed until it's too late. The manipulator may be someone close to you, someone you trust, someone you care about, and because of that, they know exactly how to play on your emotions, your insecurities, your hopes, and your fears. They know how to push your buttons in such a way that you'll give them what they want without realizing you're being controlled. The scariest part about manipulation is that it's not always overt. It's not always a loud, dramatic demand. Often it's quiet, disguised as concern or love, and that's what makes it so dangerous. A manipulator will try to convince you that you owe them something, that your worth is tied to what you can provide for them. They will make you feel guilty if you don't comply with their needs or demands. They will make you believe that if you truly cared for them, you would put their needs above your own. They'll paint themselves as the victim in any given situation, making you feel responsible for their emotions and actions. And before you know it, you've lost sight of your own needs, your own desires, and your own sense of self. You become so focused on pleasing them, on making them happy, on fixing things for them, that you forget about your own well-being. You begin to think that your value lies in how much you can sacrifice for them, how much you can do for them, and how much of yourself you can give away. But that is the lie of manipulation. The truth is, you are not responsible for anyone else's happiness. You are not responsible for fixing people, nor are you responsible for their emotional baggage. No matter how much they try to make you feel like you are, the reality is that you are in control of your own life, your own emotions, and your own actions. The manipulator wants you to believe otherwise, because when they can get you to think that you owe them something, they can continue to use you for their own benefit. The more they can make you feel guilty, the more you will give, and the more they will take. They may even convince you that their manipulation is for your own good, that they know what's best for you, but the truth is they are only trying to control the narrative to serve their own interests. It's important to recognize manipulation for what it is, and the first step is to understand how it works. Manipulators often use guilt, fear, and shame as their primary tools. They know that if they can make you feel guilty for saying no or setting boundaries, they can continue to get what they want. They may say things like, if you really love me, you would do this for me, or I've done so much for you, and this is all I ask in return. They know that guilt can be a powerful motivator, and they use it to get you to comply with their demands. They may also use fear, convincing you that if you don't do what they want, something terrible will happen. or you'll lose them forever. This fear can be subtle or extreme, but either way it forces you into a corner, making it seem like there is no choice but to give in. Shame is another tool they often wield. They will make you feel like you're a bad person for saying no, for setting a boundary, or for putting yourself first. They'll make you feel inadequate or unworthy, trying to lower your self-esteem so that you become more dependent on them for validation and approval. It's a psychological tactic to weaken your resolve and get you to question your own worth. The goal is to make you feel so small, so insignificant, that you'll be willing to do whatever it takes to avoid the feeling of shame. The most important thing you can do when you recognize manipulation is to stand firm in your truth. You must remember that your needs are just as important as anyone else's. You are allowed to say no, to set boundaries, and to protect yourself. You are allowed to take care of your own emotional health without feeling guilty about it. When you realize you are being manipulated, you have the power to walk away from that situation, to take control of your own life, and to demand that others treat you with respect. Manipulation only works when you allow it to, and once you understand what's happening, you can put a stop to it. It's also essential to recognize that manipulation often thrives in an environment of uncertainty or low self-worth. If you're not confident in who you are, if you doubt your value or your decisions, you become more susceptible to being controlled. But the moment you build that inner strength, the moment you trust yourself and your intuition, manipulation loses its grip on you. It's about recognizing that you don't need anyone's approval to be worthy. You don't need anyone's validation to know that you are valuable, capable, and deserving of respect. Manipulation is a toxic dynamic that should never be tolerated. It's not love, it's not care, and it's certainly not something that should ever be excused. You have the right to live a life free from emotional control, free from guilt, fear, or shame. The moment you understand manipulation for what it is, you gain the power to stop it. You stop letting others define your worth, and you start defining it for yourself. Setting boundaries is one of the most empowering things you can do for yourself, yet it is often one of the hardest things to master. Boundaries are not walls that keep people out, but lines that protect your energy, your time, and your peace. When you don't set clear boundaries, you leave the door open for others to walk all over you, use you, and take more than they're willing to give. But when you learn to establish and maintain boundaries, you are telling the world, and more importantly, yourself, that you respect who you are, that your needs matter, and that you won't tolerate being taken advantage of. The first thing to understand is that boundaries are not selfish. There's a misconception that saying no to someone or setting limits on what you're willing to do makes you selfish or unkind. But in reality, setting boundaries is an act of self-care. It's about acknowledging that your time, your energy, and your emotions are valuable and that they deserve to be protected. If you don't set boundaries, you end up giving so much of yourself to others that you have nothing left for yourself. Eventually, this depletion can lead to burnout, resentment, and frustration. When you fail to protect your own well-being, you become a shell of who you are, and that affects every part of your life. Boundaries are not only about saying no, they are about teaching others how to treat you. When you allow others to cross your boundaries, you send the message that you're willing to be used, that your needs don't matter as much as theirs, and that your time and energy are disposable. But when you clearly communicate what you will and won't tolerate, you are setting a standard for how you want to be treated. It is not about controlling others, but about showing them that you value yourself enough to stand firm in what you need. And when people respect your boundaries, you create healthier, more balanced relationships where mutual respect is at the core. Learning to set boundaries can be uncomfortable at first. We live in a world that often values people pleasing and going along with what others want. Society encourages us to be accommodating, to avoid conflict, and to always put others first. But this creates a toxic dynamic where your needs are constantly sacrificed and you're left feeling unappreciated and drained. In truth, it is impossible to be everything to everyone. You cannot please everyone, nor should you try. No matter how much you care about someone, you have to recognize that you cannot pour from an empty cup. If you give and give without taking the time to replenish yourself, you will eventually lose yourself in the process. Setting boundaries isn't always about cutting people off or severing relationships. It's about maintaining balance. It's about saying, I can give, but I need something in return. I can help, but I need to make sure I am okay first. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and understanding. If you're constantly the one giving and never receiving, you're not in a healthy relationship. You're in a one-sided transaction. That kind of dynamic will inevitably drain you, leaving you feeling like you're being used. And the truth is, no one deserves to feel like a means to an end. You are not a tool for someone else's success, and you are not obligated to sacrifice your own well-being for the comfort of others. The key to setting strong boundaries is understanding that you are not responsible for other people's emotions or reactions. People may get upset or frustrated when you say no or when you draw a line, But that is their issue, not yours. You cannot control how someone else reacts to your boundaries, but you can control how you enforce them. It's important to remind yourself that someone else's displeasure does not invalidate your right to take care of yourself. You are allowed to put yourself first. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to set limits. This is not about being rude or unkind. It's about protecting your peace and maintaining your own emotional health. It is also important to recognize that boundaries can change and evolve over time. There may be situations or relationships where your boundaries need to shift or become more defined as you grow and learn. That's okay. Boundaries are not set in stone. They are flexible, and they should reflect what feels right for you in any given moment. It's a lifelong process of learning what works for you, what you're willing to accept, and what you need to let go of in order to thrive. Another critical aspect of setting boundaries is being consistent. Once you have communicated your boundaries, you must stand by them. If you let people cross your boundaries once, they will likely test them again. And if you don't enforce them, you send the message that they can be ignored. Consistency is key to maintaining healthy boundaries, even when it's uncomfortable. The more you practice setting boundaries, the easier it becomes and the stronger your sense of self-respect grows. Lastly, remember that setting boundaries is not just about protecting yourself from others. It's also about protecting yourself from your own tendencies. It's easy to become so focused on taking care of others that you neglect your own needs. You might feel guilty about setting limits on your time or saying no to a request. But the reality is that if you don't honor your own boundaries, no one else will. You are the first line of defense in protecting your peace and well-being. When you begin to value yourself enough to set boundaries, you send a message to the world that you deserve respect, love, and consideration. And once you start doing this, others will learn to respect you in the same way. Setting boundaries doesn't just protect your peace. It creates the foundation for healthier, more fulfilling relationships in all areas of your life.